So welcome back, everybody. If you want to turn on your camera so we can be connected, it's always lovely. If you don't, that's totally wonderful too. Our Roshi Terragno will share a few words with everybody. But just before he does, I just wanted to say we're very happy to welcome Corey Hess for this evening's Zen and Dharma talk. Corey is a longtime Rinzai practitioner who trained for years in Sojinji and Okayama in Japan under Shodo Harada Roshi. His work brings together Zen practice, Qigong, a standing meditation, non-directed movement, hands-on body work, all grounded in a deep commitment to embodied awareness. For more than 2 decades, Corey has supported students and clients in working with physical tension, emotional healing, subtle energy practices in our daily lives. His teaching is warm, direct, no nonsense, and rooted in a long history of personal practice. We are glad that you're going to join us tonight in this process. Thank you, Sensei Hess, for being here, and I know Roshi will share a few words.
Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Corey. I've never met Corey, but I've been in touch with him on and off. I've admired some of the videos I've seen of him teaching. And in fact, since probably the first time I saw him, I started, maybe 4 years ago, I started practicing Qigong here in town, 3 times a week. So, but Corey, I think I once mentioned to you something you wrote in Facebook, can you hear okay? Yeah. Something you wrote in Facebook at least 2 years ago, if not more, that it was very simple and so beautiful and direct, and you probably don't know what I'm talking about, but you called it Doku Session, and making your practice absolutely everything that happens in your day. And the way that you wrote it, it's funny how I'm looking over there while I'm talking to him over here. There, that's also here. So it really, my practice was already kind of moving in a certain direction, but that was extraordinary how it impacted me. And people had to listen to this stuff. I read it everywhere I teach, And sometimes I forget and I want to read it again and again. That's the 3rd time that you repeated this in the last 3 years. This is well good. You should hear it 9 times and 10 times. Anyway, I'm glad to have you here. I did no session with Terragno Roshi. I don't remember when, but it was before the temple was built at Whitby, and we used what became the hospice for the dojo that week. I was in Portland. I went with my friends, Michael and Chosen and Hogan. So yeah, and I've seen Terragno Roshi quite a few times when he comes to the Bay Area, in Bolinas, or in various places. So he definitely had an impact in my practice too. And this was, I don't know, in the early 20s maybe, when I did that. So anyway, thank you, man. And it's always good to see you and your beautiful family.
And Sensei Hess, without any further ado, the floor is yours, and you might need to unmute unless you can do telepathy.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much for having me. And
oh, sorry, just a moment. Excuse me, I need to switch. The audio is not working. I'm just testing here. I think I'll get it going now, and then I will pin you, and then you're good. Very sorry for you to have that start and then stop. Here is a spotlight for everyone. There we go.
All right.
well, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Roshi, for for that introduction, you've supported me over the years, I think, in some ways, in my wildness. So I really appreciate you. Um,
Or your volume is very low.
it's low.
Yes.
That's better. That's better. But you
How is it now?
I think you need to mute the Zoom group meeting room.
Perfect.
How's that now? Is it better?
Better. Yes.
Okay. I'll just climb on top of the computer here. Okay. Well, anyway, thank you, Roshi, for your support over. I felt that from you over the years, so thank you. And I've heard nothing but good things about you, so thank you. And thanks for inviting me here. Yeah, what a special little evening. And it's so nice to see the sangha here. So I'm Corey. Ichigen is my Dharma name, or Tairei Ichigen. My ordination name was Tairei. And I trained under Shodo Harada Roshi in my 20s at Sogenji. And I want to talk a little bit about that. So going to Sogenji and meeting the Roshi, and why would someone like me do that? Some guy who likes baseball or sports and girls, and I just wanted to be a writer, and I wanted to be just a normal guy, but I was profoundly intense, and I seemed to have no way to interact with that intensity well in the world. I'd functioned very well, but something about my experience didn't feel. I knew there was something deeper there that I needed to find and to learn to interact with, and that very need to touch that, to experience that, drove me. And this is called the great doubt in Zen. This necessity of discovering what we are, of discovering what the point of all this is. Not a good idea. Not like I like Buddhism, and I think it's an artistic aesthetic sense. I like minimalist furniture. It wasn't like that. It was like I need to discover what the universe is and what I'm doing here. And that culminated for me in college. I was an athlete, and my whole body was sort of had a lot of energy, but I didn't really know how to move with it. I didn't really know how to interact with my experience, and it kind of culminated in this time when my body kind of seized up, and that it wasn't just about my body. It was about my way of being in the world wasn't working, and so my practice was necessity, and so I had to find a way to interact with my experience, and so I tried various things like we all do, and I'll get to that a little bit, but I ended up Buddhism was very much calling to me in some ways. I deeply admired the Beats. I loved Gary Snyder, and I thought I wanted to be a writer like him and go to Japan and train in a monastery. And so I wrote Gary. I was living in Missoula, Montana, and I wrote Gary, and he said, "Don't go to Japan yet. Go to this place on Whidbey Island. Go to Tahoma, and there's a real teacher there, and they're setting up a place. And so I went with romantic ideas and kicking and screaming in a way not to do it. I still went, and when I arrived at the monastery on Whidbey Island, which is where I live now, I found it much different than I'd expected. I found I was met by these two kind of beautiful monks, and they picked me up in this little car at the bus stop, and we drove to the monastery, and it was quite beautiful. And they were shockingly different than what I'd imagined. They were there was something about them that was so compelling and shining and also intense. And I don't think I knew how to interact with that yet. I feel like I was living in this world of trying to be nice and trying to be good, and yet I had all this intensity pushing through me all the time. And I saw with these guys, like, they are intense and they are pushing my buttons. And I got the hell out of there. I said, screw this. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go travel. I'm going to go be, it confronted some of my places that were deeply held. And so I rushed away, and I went traveling, and I was traveling in Cuba, and I was in Havana, and I was there, and it was so beautiful, and it was this crumbling opera house of beauty, and yet I felt very deeply that I couldn't really be there. I couldn't really be with my experience. Like, my cells did not know how to be with my experience. And so I realized this is the internal trip. This is the real trip I've got to do. I've got to learn to do this. And again, it was necessity that brought me back. And that was around 2000, and all the worries about that. And we spent the New Year in New Orleans, and then I drove back out to Montana, and then I called the monk, and I said, I have fond memories of being there somehow. I said that, and even though I was conflicted. He said, well, come on out. And I went out, and the Roshi was there, and he was visiting from Japan, and meeting him, he invited me to tea, and meeting him profoundly changed my life. So the head monk there, who I had met before, was beautiful and powerful and inspiring and intense. But meeting the Roshi was, it was like meeting human potential. And I walked into tea with him, and he's this little guy, and he's the most profoundly physically present person you'll meet. So it was like he was exploding there, and he was at once totally centered and exploding. And I was a bit overwhelmed by that. I didn't really know what to do with that. And later you learn, like, you're basically in a rock concert all the time. And you're just learning how to, like, interact with it. Like, the rock concert's on you, and you just learn how to be with it. But at that point I was with him, and I said, well, why would a person like me go to Sogenji? And he could kind of tell that I was wired with a lot of intensity, and he kind of knew this is a species I can understand. I can work with this guy. And he said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, I think it depends on the person and what they want. And he said, no, it's to realize why you were born. And I had really no idea what to do with that. I had nowhere to land. I had no clever idea. I had no comeback for that. And so that just put me into a really interesting place of confusion in a good way. And so I sat for the rest of the retreat on one of these chairs, where you sit on your knees, and like a desk for a computer. And it was terrible. I was in agony. I was this pressure cooker in my body. And at the end I had a kind of a deep zazen. And I saw that, oh, zazen, something's going on here. Something's possible here. It's like I swallowed my brain or something. I didn't have to breathe. It was very weird. And the kinhin kept happening, and I was just there. I didn't know what to do. But then I went back, and I was on my brother's couch that evening before I went back to Montana, and it had faded, but I had gotten a carrot of what was possible. Fast forward to I went to Japan to visit, and I met the Roshi, and it's a profoundly beautiful place. It's like this oven of intensity, and it's also weird. It's like why are all these people here in Japan, all these foreigners here, dressing up in these clothes, and yet this is the most profound thing also. So it was like Jedi training and weird, and that never quite gets resolved in a way. But I went there, and I would go to the Sanzen with the Roshi, and I had so much going through me. I was suffering so much. I would just cry in Sanzen, and I had so much overflowing, and he was so gentle with me. He was so beautiful, and instead of this dragon, which I came to know over the years, he was so gentle with me and so patient, and he was meeting me in this beautiful way and giving me what I needed. And I think that really did it for me. I think I knew something. The conveyor belt had already started for me, and I was on that conveyor belt. But I went back to the States, and I was living in Seattle and then on Whidbey here, and I didn't want to go to Japan. I didn't want to be a monk. I wanted to just be an artist. And then day 6 of a retreat here on the island was 9/11. And so that just, I said, we got to figure something out here. I gotta do something here. So something has to change. And so I went, I got a crazy manual job that I was doing. And then I went on Halloween there in 2001. And I thought I was going to stay a couple months. And instead I'm going to stay a year. And then I'm going to stay another year. I'm going to stay another year. And so living with the Roshi, I want to talk a little bit about that. So just to get like really nuts and bolts, the lower body is naturally sinking into the earth. Okay? The lower body, it's like the center of the earth is naturally magnetizing our lower body to the center of the earth all the time. We're not creating this. Okay? This is old time, archaic Japanese wisdom. Okay? So the lower body is naturally sinking, and the upper body is floating. It's profoundly relaxed and floating. And it's like a little hook is gently pulling the top of the head up straight above the ears. Not with force. So the minute you do it with force, you're blocking it. Okay? But just that possibility that the upper body is always floating. So we can just totally let go of the upper body. And then in the middle of the belly, 2 or 3 centimeters below the navel, is the tanden. In the middle. So not on the skin and not on the lower back. The tanden, or lower dantian, can also be called. So tanden is like day 1. It's what you study. It's what you start to focus on all day. The Roshi would just walk by me, and I was this kind of pressure cooker, and he would just hit his belly and grunt at me. And get into the tanden. And this kind of intensity, this kind of physical practice was, it was so beautiful and welcome for me. I had all of this intensity, and I needed a venue to start to be able to put all that into practice. Everything in the monastery is fast. You're running to stuff. You're running behind the mop. You're washing the rice fast. You're eating fast. It's super intense. So everything's intense. And that was my gear. So I love that. I love that intensity. I was good at that. I'm good at intensity. And so I just ate up that life in some ways. But the Zazen was very, very hard for me. I was physically very tense. I wasn't in my body. So I was an athlete. I was a big runner. I was a rock climber, and so my legs were really tense. I had a lot of imbalances muscularly, and you're sitting 8 to 20 hours a day there, and so that sitting, it shows you very clearly where you're blocked, where your body isn't open, and so this sitting was incredibly difficult for me at first, but it was also so beautiful. There was something about it that I felt myself changing. I felt like there was a possibility here of transformation, maybe my only chance to really transform. Like it was a venue to be able to explore my experience. And so you're there and you're doing this Tanden work, and you don't really know what to do with that. And you're doing this breathing work called Susokan. And Susokan is the long exhalation. Okay, so let me adjust my volume really quick if I can. Well, I don't think I can. That's okay, I'll just do it. So the Susokan is this long exhalation. So you just focus on the exhale, and you don't focus on the inhale. So you just exhale. And you keep going. And you're doing this exhale. And you go into the see the Roshi for Sanzen, and you're giving this exhale. You're giving this exhale. And he can see where you're caught. And you can't do it at first because you're so tense in your chest. And for me, it was very difficult. I wasn't good at it. I had a lot of breathing problems. And so what I started to do was work with these energetic practices. And this is where I'm going with this. So the Roshi doesn't really care how you get into your process. He doesn't really care how you get into the energy, into the Tanden, into the breathing. He's there for you to do it. It's a wild place of creative discovery. So there were a couple of practices that I did, standing practices, that it allowed me to get into my body and start to open it up. So one of them is called Jamjong, and this is post-standing. And so you go into these postures where you're holding yourself and you're releasing your breath, you're releasing any sense of how to control the energy, and your body starts to, because of the pressure of the postures, it starts to open up. So wherever you're stuck in your system, maybe you couldn't feel it. So in Zazen, you're there and you're hitting a wall. In the Damjong, you start to see, oh, I can start to interact where I'm caught, where I'm physically caught. And not everybody is that kind of animal, but for me, that was a wonderful, wonderful practice to be able to see. Like, I can hold my arms here for a few minutes, and then I start to see this whole channel is blocked. And I began to see this internal ability to see, oh, that's trying to open for me. The energy is trying to open up. The central channel is trying to open. And if I can find a way to let that door open with the posture, then I would go to do Zazen, in that the momentum in the body would already be there. So my Zazen changed because I had learned this internal language of being able to interact with the energy. And I also had another practice called non-directed body movement. And this is it's kind of the opposite of the Jamjong. So I would, I'd be in the day, in the middle of the day, we'd be sitting in the morning, sitting in the evening. And then in my free times, I would go out into the garden and I would just stand there. And I would not control anything. And what I started to see was, in my Zazen, I had been trying to make all of this happen. I've been trying so hard to do Zazen, trying to make it happen, trying to breathe. And I had been kind of going past my experience. I had been missing what was actually happening when I stopped. And when I started to do the non-directed as well as the Jamjong, my practice started to change. I started to open up, and my Zen started to deepen. Um, so, I wouldn't mind if anyone would like to ask a question. I wouldn't mind if people would like to jump in and ask a question. Dozo, just pop on there.
Okay. Yeah, I have a question.
Yep.
There's, um, you were showing standing up with your hands like this.
Yep.
You, in some of your videos, I thought you call it something like Zhazong or something like that.
That's right.
Is that the
Jamjong.
same thing that you're talking?
Yep. Yes, sir.
So Phil, I'm gonna use my mic and speaker.
Good, yeah, good. I love that, and sometimes we do it in the Qigong class, but, the teacher says, Daniel, that's a very advanced thing. But it doesn't matter, I'm glad that that's the same thing you're mentioning. Thank you.
I think it's the foundation for the other stuff. In all internal martial arts, the Jamjong is the foundation for that. That's my understanding, and it's sort of like the homework that you do in order to make, when we do the movements, we're coming from this place of connection. Well, yeah, love it. Yep, the Jamjong or Zhanzhong, we probably won't ever say it quite right, but and so again, the Roshi he didn't really care how. I had to go see him every day, twice a day, and could I bring the energy? Could I bring this breath? And when I started to open up my body, then I started to be able to change and started to be able to open up. He loves that. He loved that. So he doesn't really care. That's what they call kufu in Japanese, creative problem solving. So whatever creativity you'd use to be able to open up, he loves that, bringing that in. Yeah.
So two kind of minor questions. One of them is that in the field, just kind of that authentic movement or whatever the word you used, feels like a kind of what they would talk about in Tibetan practice as kind of post meditation practice, where you're just letting being fully 100%. And there's another thing that I noticed when I was doing some Qigong work, is that at some point, like, my foot hooked all the way through my hip, all the way through my hand, and all the way out, in a way that there's this like integrated power in my movement, and it settled into a sense of myself as kind of like being able to rest in an embodied state of just strength and okayness. I don't know if you have any relationship with either of those two comments.
I mean, love it. So what I want to do with this talk is I want to say that this is not Zen is not mental. Zen is not mental. This is not an intellectual practice. This is a cellular practice. This is and it's even more than an embodiment practice. We get into the body, we deeply get into the body, and so we move out of this intellectual interacting with our experience, kind of solely intellectual, and we start to move into this world of feeling more and more. And as we do that, we start to get more into the body. And as we learn that, we see, oh, I thought it was my body, but as I do that, I start to connect with something much more interesting. There's something much more interesting going on. We're having some feedback. I love it, whatever's going on.
Sorry, I'll turn it off.
Okay. We're having some, so we start to see that, like, much more than just my body, there's something much more interesting going on. And this is why the Tanden work is this tool to be able to start to interact with this bigger aspect coming through ourselves. So like the Roshi would talk a lot about this in Teisho, like, do you think it's your muscles holding you up? Do you think that's what it is? So what is it? What is this great life energy shining through us? And can we begin to interact with that? It's not just embodiment. That's the way we start to get into it. And then we see the rabbit hole goes much deeper. Like, as I go deeper into feeling what's really going on, my experience starts to deepen. The states of mind naturally start to happen. And we start to see, oh, I can start to feel everything. I can begin to interact with everything through this process. It's not just the body, but that's a wonderful gateway to start to dive deeper into our experience naturally. So this cellular process of Zen is it's this energetic process that I'm trying to talk about here. So I want to get into a little bit more further with the Sosokan and maybe touch on the Mu a little bit, if that's okay. So as we're, good to see everybody. As we're going into our process further and further, the energy starts to cook. The process starts to happen. Our mind starts to clarify. We start to feel like we're this arrow in flight, like we're being drawn further into this process. We don't understand it, but our whole body's being pulled into this process. Joe Bateman's raising, he's giving a gasho. We're being pulled into this process. And this is very disorienting for us because we spent our whole lives trying to figure out everything. And so you're in this life of beginning to be led by this deeper process trying to happen through you, further and further. And it's the breath starts to change, the eyes start to change, our whole body starts to change. And inside and outside start to dissolve. These ideas of how we think we are in the world start to dissolve. And so as we do that, as samadhi states start to begin to show up, as we unify, our whole being starts to unify, then maybe the Roshi gives us a koan, the first koan, the breakthrough koan. This is the Rinzai style. And so you get this breakthrough koan, and you don't know what to do with it. You don't know what it means. And it's a monk asked Master Joshu, does a dog have Buddha nature? Joshu replied, mu. And you get this and you have no idea what to do, but you're gonna just do this mu all day long. Mu, mu. You don't necessarily have to align it with the breath, but you can. Mu. And you're doing this mu, mu, mu. And the mu becomes this thing at first you're struggling to do, and then you can't wait to do something else. Like, God damn it, I can't wait to do something. Can I do something else, please? I want to do this. I'm doing this mu because the Roshi told me, but I want to do something else. And then over time, as you're going deeper into it, the mu starts to take over. You're no longer leaving the mu to do something else. You're no longer saying, the mu is exhausting, or the mu is something that I have to hold up with my experience. It starts to invade you. So you're moving further. It's a vehicle to move further into oneness. And you're diving more into this. Your whole body starts to become this mu. You don't understand it, but it's happening. Mu, mu. And you're talking with someone, and all you hear is mu. They're talking and you just hear mu. Or you accidentally say mu. Like you're supposed to be talking about tea and you say mu. Or the bird's crying and you hear mu. You're dreaming. You're dreaming of mu. And this goes on. Sometimes people do this for 20 years. They do it for 20 years. Sometimes longer, shorter, 10 years. For me, I had I think because of my intensity and because of maybe a certain type of honesty that I had, I was able to give myself to the mu. I was able to throw everything I had into it, every cell into the mu, and was able to profoundly give myself to it. There are a couple things you need in Zen. You need to be able to throw yourself into what you're doing 1000%. This is called shikari, grasping with all your might. And then you need to learn to be able to let go. And I was really good at grasping with all my might, but I wasn't very good at letting go. And the mu becomes this, for me, it became this vehicle to show me how to give everything I had to it and let go within it. So I could go further. You're going into Sanzen over and over. You're yelling the mu. It's an overflowing of energy, and you're yelling the mu, and the Roshis, more deep, further, and you're going in every day, over and over, and you start to go through a change. A big change starts to happen. You start to see the mu. You start to, your whole body becomes this mu. You don't know what's going on. You disappear. You lose time. And one day you're become so honest. You become so sharp with this process that it's like you finally touch the source of experience. Like you've touched the source of everything, and it's like a bucket just shatters, and you hit this main line of the universe, and you hit this true Dharma body that is everything. You hit this profound oneness of everything. And I was lucky enough to have this Sogenji, to have the Roshi, and to have I was a good species for the Roshi. I hit him at a good time. He was very ripe as a teacher, and I did the mu, and I had a profound change, and I took that into him one morning, and then he said, "You walked it that honestly. Let's move on now to koans." Then you go through some processes. You go through checking all this, and then you move on to the koans. And but in my experience, it requires this touching of this source to be able to interact with the koan, with the koans after that. So that was my process. And then the koans are so beautiful. They're so beautiful. They're it's like I'm there interacting with Gosa Hoen. I'm there interacting with Bodhidharma. You know, I'm overcome by Bodhidharma. I'm in this wild unknown with Bodhidharma as he's molding me. You're being molded by these koans. And you die into the koan. And it's so beautiful. I'm going to pause there. And anybody wants to throw something out there, please.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Great. I've got a couple pedestrian questions for you.
Yeah.
The first is that, the word I've been reading for 30 years or 40 years is hara, for the center of your belly, and you used a different word. Could you teach us the difference? And could you share the year that you contacted Gary Snyder, who I took a class from many years ago, Davis, at UC Davis? Yeah.
That's awesome. Gary's great. He's like email friendly.
Yeah.
He answers emails. Isn't that wow?
Oh, that guy. That's good.
I know. He's still alive.
95.
Yeah. I think it was it's like 90, 98, something like that. It was great. So no, it's a good question. I think hara, hara is like kind of a general word. It's like a general Japanese word. Like it's kind of like you say like to a young guy in Japan, like you don't have a hara, like you don't have any groundedness. So in that way, it's like you don't have a belly, you don't have any groundedness, and it's a little more vague. I'd say it's a more vague term, and it's used a lot, and it's really beautiful, and it's I think that what we're talking about a little bit with this is internal alchemy that I think came through China to through Zen, through Chan, through Zen to Japan. And the Tanden is, I think, more specifically with this more sophisticated way of looking at the lower Dantian and Tanden. So I think they refined that and they took it maybe in their own beautiful way through Zen. They refined that and they started to use the Tanden as this vehicle for manifesting and for deepening the practice and then being able to walk around from this place of true clarity. So I'd say the Tanden's more specific. It's more pointed and sophisticated than the sense of the Hara as a more general term. That's my sense.
Thank you very much.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
So, does anybody else have any questions? I don't want us to be in the room the only ones asking. So if you're new, just feel free to ask questions. They don't have to be good or perfect or right, and they can just come from wherever your truth is right now.
Yeah, I'm very nice.
He says that, but he bit me 4 times plus.
Corey, I
Go ahead.
yeah, I appreciate your the way you've actually lived your practice. That's something I strive for myself. Just sitting, still, and I mean, it just doesn't work for me. So, trying to make it real. So that looks like that's what you were been trying to do, and it's been working for you. And yeah, I like words about Gary Snyder too. I always loved Gary Snyder. I stole Rip Rap, the original, back in the 60s. And years later, I sent it back. But yeah, he's been an inspiration for me too. Anyway, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think any idea we have of Zazen, is wrong. So any barrier or confinement we put on Zazen, I think we have to be very careful of that. So what's happening for us right now in the most honest way, like what's actually happening and what's trying to happen, and any idea I have of how that should be, I would spend time questioning that. So if I think it's supposed to be this way, that's me putting some kind of block on my experience. And I want to encourage people to have the agency to, especially at times, I'm going to sit here and I'm not going to do Zazen, whatever that is. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to let go of my any preconceived notions I have of how it is supposed to be, and see what's emerging out of my experience. And we can play with that. And we have to be rebels in this practice. It's a profoundly rebellious practice, because there are people sitting in Zendos who they have an idea of what Zazen is, and they are demanding that that's what it is, and they sit there for 30 years demanding that's how it's going to be. And they've set up camp and they said, this is what Zazen is, and I'm going to make it that, and I'll make sure that's what it is, and I'll wait until it arrives. And they're not actually interacting with their experience. So I think for all of us, Zazen has to be profoundly personal. It has to be what's happening for me and what's happening right now in my experience, and being intimate with that. And of course we can go into form. Of course we can do that. But I think it's worth giving time where we throw off all of our restraints and see, oh, what's happening here. And what happened for me with the non-directed is that I had all of these strong, and I'm not talking about you, Willis. I'm not talking about you, just my own experience. I had all of these strong ideas of what Zazen was, and I was trying so hard that the non-directed, which is me just standing there and not making anything happen, I got to let go of some of my strong eagerness. My eagerness to do it right was actually blocking my experience. And I think that's very interesting. So I was the one in the way, blocking Zazen from happening by trying so hard. Some of us are like that. And some of us aren't trying enough. So we've got to learn that's where we've got to find it. So some of us are diving out so much to make it happen. And some of us are pulling everything in at us. And we're obsessing over things inside. And so what is it right now in my experience? How could I meet my experience and what would that be like? So it's a profoundly creative practice. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I wanted to bring that up, so thanks for reminding me.
Oh,
Yeah, hi Corey. It's great to hear you, and I have a question because when you were talking about settling the body, the very beginning, you said about the lower part of the body being like magnetically connected and the upper part just floating kind of upward. And I was just interested in that because that is practically word for word the way I teach meditation. I don't know where I got it. Maybe I got it from somewhere, but to hear you say it, I'm curious where that came from for you. That
And I don't mean to interrupt, but I just want to introduce you. This is Roshi Agard. She's a Dharma heir of Terragno Roshi here, and I just wanted you two to both know each other. She's a lovely light in this world and really uplifts multiple sanghas. Now I'll shut up.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. Well, that was my first sanzen with the Roshi. This is called kuden, oral pointers. And so these little oral pointers, I don't think there's a lot of record of some of these, but this is like the nuts and bolts, everyday little pointers that the physical pointers that the Roshi just kind of gives you, in passing. But so that was my very first sanzen, and very not easy, right? Not easy, of course, and then I think also for some of us, we could even take that and start to make some strong conclusions out of that. And so often with these pointers is not hold them too tightly, because I could hold that tightly, and then if the energy does something else, then it's wrong, and I've made it wrong, and then I'm becoming this pressure cooker. So yeah, it's very delicate, some of these pointers, but yeah, my first sanzen, really wonderful.
interesting. Yeah, great. It was just cool to hear you say that because I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, it's wonderful. I think but anything that you make rigid is not going to work. But yeah, it's a wonderful way, I think, to start to settle the body, just as you described that. It's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I love these kind of old time archaic, kind of folk wisdom. I think that's kind of where that comes from, Yeah. Who else? You can point me to something you'd want me to talk about too, if anybody wants to do that.
I've always got a question. So I'll throw you in one more because people are being quiet. When I look back at my life, one of my biggest questions for myself that's hard for me to face is what has been a waste of time. I actually asked Terragno Roshi in 2004, when he looked back at his practice, what was the waste of his time when he gave a talk. I wonder, when you look back, you're very different than I am. We share intensity, but I'm a zero athlete. And I bailed on Japanese language after trying for a year, and you mastered it, right? So after trying so hard, I bailed. But you have made a life in these things, and I suspect, like most humans, you look back and think, that's too bad that I tortured myself that way. I could have let that go, and I regret that.
Yeah, well, I hear you. I think in many ways, I feel very, very blessed by all of the hardships I've gone through. I feel very blessed by all of the struggles I've made, and all of the dark corners I've gone into. I think in many ways they've I feel in retrospect that I was being led the whole time. Honestly, I feel like the Haitsu Roshi would say, life is being led, life is being lived. That's Yamada Mumon's brother Dharma heir. And I think in many ways I feel like that. I feel like my life is not really my own. I feel like if it were about me and my realization, or me and my perfection, then I would be a complete mess, you know. But being the day one there in the monastery, you become this idiot, this baka, and you become further from being this baka, and that's the beauty of it too. Is like is seeing like all of my faults, or all of the things that that I'm not perfect about, or that I struggled with. They aren't the point. The point is that they've given me a chance to connect with this bigger process, and so in that way I feel profoundly led by by all of the struggles I've been through, and the dark turns that I've had to go through. I was the worst practitioner, like the worst. I was the worst sitter. I was I could barely breathe. I was just there in agony on the cushion. Because of those struggles, I now have like so much to share with people. I've actually, it gave me the ability to then tease apart where I was gripping, and where I was holding, and now I have that ability to work with others in that. So the struggles have been very helpful, and yeah, letting go into this this bigger life. That's. I'm not sure I answered it, but that's my experience.
It's okay, Sensei. I think what you're saying is you regret nothing, and nothing was a waste of time, which is a perfectly acceptable answer.
Yeah, and I left the monastery, and I came home and started a family, and I could have stayed, and I could have had a very different life, and I could be talking to you from a different Zendo right now, and be a Roshi in a certain way. And I don't regret that at all, because I feel like my life has really ripened my process in a way that's been so beautiful. So yeah, I don't have regrets in that way. That's how I feel. Yeah. You know, I was terrible.
In terms of being a terrible student and always in pain and always squirming, I relate very much. Luckily, 20 years later, after getting a few a few Doksan bells ringing me out of the room, and lots of stick with that and go deepers. It's easier to be alive. I don't know if anybody else has questions. I have something that kind of landed in me. I got some instructions at one point from someone who studied with Harada Roshi, where they said, play with letting your consciousness move, your seat of your consciousness move from your head down to your stomach. And one of the things that I realized in that was I had identified my whole being with my mentality, and that I was a whole lot deeper than that, and that I could rest in a deeper space, and then I kind of rested more down into the stomach. There's like an opening of being. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or relationship with it, or if it's bad instructions even that I misunderstood. That's totally possible.
Yeah, I mean, the Roshi he would take his shipe and he would hit his head, and he would say, not here, like 5,000 times. You know what I mean? He would hit his head and say it's not there. And actually, I like what you're saying totally. And the way that from what I saw, the way that the Roshi had used the Tanden was, it's like his consciousness had unified through the Tanden. So in that way, there wasn't this type of normal filter of intellectual calculating when he would interact and talk. So like you'd say something to him and it would like kind of burst out of the Tanden. So very interesting. So it's this tool to unify the consciousness and bring this one pointedness through the system, rather than what we call mozo, like this thought upon that thought that we're kind of filtering through to come up with an answer. So it's this way of, again, unifying the being in this oneness. So the Tanden is, it's this really deep process. And I would say about the Tanden, this is a big subject, okay? But okay, so people think about putting their awareness in the Tanden, okay? And often people go, well, I want to put it down there, okay? I'm gonna put my awareness down there, and that has a direction to it, okay? And often if we're trying to make the energy go down, it just goes up. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? You're trying to make it go down and it goes up. So what I would say with that is I'd be really curious about the Tanden. Like I'd be really curious, like a little bit like you're on the soccer field and the Tanden is there and you're holding it in your awareness. So there's the Tanden. It's on the sidelines, okay? And I'm living my life and I'm curious about the Tanden more and more. Okay, somehow I'm washing the rice and I'm feeling the Tanden, or I'm doing the dishes and I'm feeling the Tanden. And it will start to invade our experience more. But if we try to force that, we'll pin the Tanden, and that will make it small, and it will make the energy in the system, the internal alchemy, it will block the free flowing energy. And so I'd be curious about it. And another thing for body orientation stuff I would suggest is try to move from the ground. So have your body be like you're using the ground like a wall. Okay. So if I'm here and I'm going to reach up, I'm going to sink into the ground. I'm just going to feel the ground like a wall, and I'm going to press off of the ground to move. Okay. So I'm moving from the ground rather than I'm taking my chest and I'm reaching up to grab something. Try to use your lower body more and more and more and more, and use the ground like a wall. Keep your elbows heavy. So if you bring your elbow out, you're moving more from here. Okay? So try to move more from the ground. So the ground is this wall that I'm moving from. Okay? And that will start to help naturally your sense will move more into the lower body. It'll start to naturally magnetize to the lower body. Yeah. But yeah, and also we probably have to go pretty soon. I'm not sure what the timing is, but
Yeah.
on and on about the Tanden.
Sensei has, Roshi has a question, and then we do need to go kind of soon. This is the kind of move.
Yeah, just like to say that when you were talking about meeting Terragno Roshi, his presence, when I did the Osashen up at the Whidbey Island, and when I was sitting, there were a whole bunch of teachers there, you know, and I was the only lay teacher. So I'm at the end of the teachers, you know, and as he would walk by me, like right here, you know, every morning, especially when he comes to for the golden hour, you know, and this is kind of funny or weird, but I would see his feet, and it was really, you know, I feel a little bit kind of embarrassed. I mean, it's kind of silly, but those feet in the ground, they were, and the way, this short guy, the way that he would walk, come on, how can that be that different than other people? And yet, you know, and the feet, you know, just, so it was a riot, man. It was like, man, there's something here that it's certainly very, very powerful, you know? Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Love it. Right. Yep. Love it. Thank you. Love it.
And receiving his Kyosaku. Now that was intense.
I know. Yep. The golden hour. Pretty nasty. Can be pretty nasty.
So I want to just take a moment and say there's, of course, nothing left to do in our lives. This is it. And we're in the middle of everything together, and I'm really grateful to be in the middle of it with Corey. Thank you for that, and I thank you, Sensei Hess, for your practice. And lots of questions I want to ask you about melting butter practice from Hakuin, and things like whether you do Qigong dissolving, and if you did kind of exploration and you're kind of just letting your body move, but those may have to wait for another day because of the time commitment. But I'm extremely grateful for your practice and for your sharing this with us. You also have been generous enough to share a lot of videos online, worth tracking down to deepen your practice. And I just feel very grateful for it. I also say that the teaching is freely given, but Dana, the practice of generosity, helps uplift people's practice. The Sangha will be offering Dana to Sensei Hess. If you want to leave money on there for Sensei Hess or for Roshi here, all of that is very welcome. Also, you're welcome to join our community and donate. If you do not want to, if you do not feel comfortable to donate, you can find me online. I'm the one that answers the Roxy Clouds Zendo email, and I'll get you to Corey's email address where you can donate directly to him, if that feels good. Grateful to get to practice. I know, Roshi, you're going to say a few words, and then we're going to do a little chanting to close, and then back into our lives, as if this isn't our life.
Yeah, no, but just thank you again, Corey. And we can, well, good, thank you. And we can just do the great vows at some point and
Do great vows rather than the Heart Sutra. That's fine. You're not a little Heart Sutra, man, but
yeah,
I'm with you.
It's
not that long. And do we have any additions that want to go on the sick list or the recently died list to just bring some heart and love to people in our lives? I know Colin added somebody recently.
All right.
All right. Oh, we will have a 2-day session next weekend, Sunday, or the 13th and the 14th. I don't remember which days of the week those are. You're welcome to join us if you want to just dive into the Hara. It'll be, I think of it as we've been